Even as the Election Commission finds itself at the heart of a political debate in Parliament, a brand new controversy has erupted in a clash, as it were, with the judiciary. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. In a scathing judgment, the Bombay High Court has come down heavily on the Election Commission, accusing it of abdicating, quote unquote, its constitutional and statutory duties. These scathing words came because of a prolonged delay in holding a bypoll election to the Pune constituency, a constituency that has lain vacant and unrepresented for several months. The judges in their ruling said that this is simply unacceptable. They went on to make many scathing observations about the Election Commission's its duties and also rejected the explanations that had been given by the Election Commission at a time when there is already a huge political and legal debate around not just how the Election Commission is appointed, but also how to make and keep its independence. To talk about this particular case and the larger implications, let's introduce our panel of experts today as we look at the fallout that this case may have in other decisions related to the Election Commission in the run-up to 2024. Joining us is Satyapal Jain. Mr. Jain is, of course, a senior law officer. He's the Additional Solicitor General of India and also a member of the BJP. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Also joining us is the petitioner's lawyer who was able to secure this response from the Bombay High Court, Dayar Singla, who represented the petitioner. Thank you very much, Dayar, for joining us. Also joining us from Mumbai today is a lawyer and activist, Abha Singh. Always a pleasure, Abha. Good to see you. And also joining us in the program today is Ashutosh Srivastav, who's also a lawyer. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Mr. Jain, before I come to actually Dayar, who will talk about his own case, I want you to give an overview as we look at the larger implications of this case. Now, if we can bring up what the judges said, the judges used some very strong words. The judges actually said that the Election Commission had abandoned its constitutional and statutory duties, that it was allowing constituencies to go unrepresented, that this was simply unacceptable. And it basically instructed the Election Commission to conduct the Lok Sabha bypoll immediately. Now, this is a case that is likely to travel all the way up to the Supreme Court. But as a senior government law officer, what are the larger implications of this case, Satyapal Jain?
Reconcile between two.
Go ahead, sir. Yeah.
You have to reconcile between three larger legal propositions. Number one, it is a fact nobody will dispute that no parliamentary or assembly constituency should be allowed to go unrepresented, and wherever there is a vacancy or otherwise, election should be held as early as possible. But at the same time, the Representation of People Act, which has been quoted, Section 149, says that if the total term of the by-election person who is elected in the by-election is less than 1 year, then you may not go for the by-election, because the huge amount that is spent on the elections, the person elected will have to go again for the same exercise after 6-7 months. This is also there. I feel that had it been a case judgment which was pronounced about 6 months back, then it was a different situation. Now imagine on 14th of December, when the new Lok Sabha is going to be elected, process is going to start in February, March, and likely to be completed by May, because Lok Sabha elections are held in 5-6 phases. I think to give a direction at this stage to hold the by-election may not be in the interest of even the person who will be contesting it. But I agree with the Election Commission by the Honorable Court. There are a number of judgments on that. The moment vacancy arises, unless there are very specific circumstances, you should go for the by-election. Unless very hard circumstances, like you might recall, during the days of extremism, the election to the whole Punjab Vidhan Sabha were not conducted for 5-6 years because it was not feasible. Murders were taking place. And when the elections were conducted, somebody was elected by 600 votes, somebody by 300 votes. Nobody could say these are the elections. I think the larger issues are involved. By-election should be held, but there has to be some time limit also before the expiry of the term of the parliament. It could be 6 months. Somebody could say 8 months. Somebody could say 5 months. Can't be that even just 3-4 months before the expiry of the term, you will go for the by-election. I feel this issue needs larger discussion and consultation among all.
So, Mr. Jain, if I understand you correctly, you agree with the principle that the court has drawn, but you do not agree that with just a few months left, you don't think it makes sense given how little the time that is left for the tenure of such an election. Now, the election commission's lawyers tried to make that point. The court did not accept that. The court said that we that's not our concern. We do not accept it. What are the larger implications of this? Because this is not going to have an impact only on Pune. This is going to set a precedent, unless challenged and overturned by the Supreme Court, for other bypolls as well.
See, I'm not aware of the facts and I'm not aware of the written statement reply filed by the Election Commission of India. What were the factors which, according to them, made it difficult to hold the by-election? Sometimes the reason can be genuine also. There is a difference between reason and excuse. Sometimes there are reasons, sometimes there are excuses. It differs from
Yes.
situation to situation. Since I have not seen the written statement stand taken by the Election Commission, what are those factors which, according to them, made it difficult to hold the election? But at the same time, we have to see to it that Election Commission has been given the power under Article 324 of the Constitution of India. It has the superintendence, power of control, superintendence, everything to hold the elections. And they have the machinery with them, which is basically the state machinery. In my view, this issue, once again, I'm saying, will have far-reaching consequences. It could be in the case of assembly also. It could be in
Yeah.
the case of Jila Parishad also. It could be in the case of a municipality also. All elected bodies. The elections should take place within reasonable time. But how much gap has to be there between the expiry of the term and the by-election? I think this needs larger consultation. It can be with any party. In one state, it may be the one party which is likely to win that seat. Another state, it may be another party. In certain state, it may be totally uncertain. Vacancy has been caused by the death, resignation, or something of a one person. The other party may be able to win. I think we should rise above personal political considerations and come to a larger principle so that it is followed in all the cases.
Okay, let me bring in Dayar at this point. Dayar Singla, who represented the petitioners and won this case for the petitioners. Mr. Jain, though you did say you're not aware of the EC's written response in court or their arguments in court, I just want to take you through some of those arguments before Dayar speaks. The EC argued one of the points that you made, that the tenure would be very short. That was one of the arguments that was made by the Election Commission. The other argument that was made by the Election Commission is we are very busy with other polls. We're very busy with preparations for 2024, which the judges got very angry about. The judges said that this was an abdication of constitutional duties and it was basically amounted to sabotaging the entire constitutional framework. Now, these are very, very angry words used by the EC, but our senior law officer, Mr. Jain, makes the point that the Representation of People Act does talk about at least like a minimum of a year's tenure. There's also the cost of holding elections, right? So what was at the heart of the argument you made? Dayar, can we unmute Dayar, please?
Thank you so much for having me, Barkha. And I defer to what Sir is saying. But I think what really weighed with the Bombay High Court is that these terms have been very well defined in the Representation of People Act. Because what happens is that earlier the section that Sir referred to was Section 149, which says that bypolls must be held when there is a vacancy. But after that, in 1996, the legislature specifically adds Section 151A, which specifies the time limit within which it has to happen, which says that the election must be held within 6 months of a vacancy arising, and provides two exceptions. It says, one, that if the vacancy which has occurred is for a period of the leftover period of the person who was there in that seat, that vacancy is for less than 1 year, then you do not need to hold the election. Here, the vacancy occurs on 29th of March 2023. The term of the Lok Sabha is till 16th of June 2024. So what really weighed, and even the Election Commission in the Bombay High Court did not take a defense under this exception because it was clear that the term was for a period longer than 1 year. Now, here the law is very well settled. The Honorable Supreme Court, in a previous case, Pramod Lakshman Godhade versus Election Commission, has said that the only date that needs to be taken into consideration is when does the vacancy occur. There is some exception to that, which is when the vacancy occurs due to maybe disqualification. Because, in cases like disqualification, you have the person coming back potentially. But here, when someone passes away, that is called a clean vacancy, where there is no possibility of that individual getting back into that seat. And here, in such cases, the only date is the date of vacancy. Now, of course, the point that EC tried to make is that it is now too late. But the question is, who caused that delay? And that is again why the Election Commission faced such stringent comments of the Bombay High Court. And the entire reason for this is because the Bombay High Court felt and it saw certain dates where they saw that it was not that the Election Commission was not holding other by elections. They were holding other by elections. And it seemed to the Bombay High Court, I would respectfully say, that they specifically decided not to hold this one and the various others which were there in the notification. Just 2 or 3 dates I will mention here to make the point that Bombay High Court was making, which is one, that on 29th March, this vacancy occurs, a clean vacancy. 2 weeks later, on 13th of April, they notify the election for the Jalandhar Lok Sabha parliamentary constituency. They could have very well held this one with the Jalandhar Lok Sabha constituency, even if they wanted to group them. After that, they hold other by-elections with respect to the state legislative assemblies. They hold multiple elections in 7 legislative assemblies in August: Jharkhand, Tripura, Kerala, West Bengal, Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand. They hold one as late as October 2023 in the Nagaland Assembly, where the poll actually happens in November 2023. And then finally, they even hold those various state assembly general elections which have happened, because the Election Commission's defense was our EVMs are getting busy, they're busy, we are preparing them for the 2024 general elections. And the Bombay High Court saw through it.
So are you saying that the central point that you made, one of the points that you made, was that there was an arbitrariness, perhaps even political bias? Because that's a big statement to make there.
No, we will not say anything on the political bias, because that honestly we don't know what was the reason behind it. But the defense that they had taken was that we are too busy. The court saw that they clearly were not too busy. They were deciding to hold some by-elections and were not holding some other by-elections. The second defense that they took was that the individual who would come into the seat would not have enough time. And when they mentioned that in the certificate, the Bombay High Court tells them that this is not for you, it is not for you to see whether someone will be effective or not. And Justice Gautam Patel actually makes a very interesting remark. He says Election Commission cannot ensure whether someone will be effective even in their entire tenure. That is for the people to decide whether someone is effective or not. And it is the only date is whether you had enough time from the date of the vacancy, which is March 2023. And Bombay High Court, I think, also felt that they could not award someone who had been delaying the elections by telling them that now, yes, on law they are correct, but maybe they will not hold elections.
Okay, I want to open this up now. We've heard, there. Mr. Jain says, in principle, it was correct, but the timing is odd. Dayar argues that the only date that matters is the starts. But Abha, the more worrying point is how several other bypolls are held, and therefore the Election Commission could stand accused of arbitrariness. Now, although this is not the subject matter of our debate this evening, this is all happening at a time when there's already a fierce political debate on, how should the EC be chosen? How do you retain its independence? What do you say, Abha, on this particular case?
Definitely, Barkha, you've actually said the very right thing, that there is a lot of debate around the EC, whether they should get the equivalence of a Supreme Court judge or where they should be positioned, and also appointment of the EC is being questioned, that how independent they are, or would they remain independent. But there was one more clause. If I act as a devil's advocate, I think maybe the lawyer of the EC did not represent their case properly, because the 2 points I've heard from they are singular. But 151A also has a clause B, which says the Election Commission, in consultation with the central government, certifies that it is difficult to hold the by-election within the said period. So this is one point which we've not heard from both the sides, whether this point was taken up by Election Commission, because we know the Maratha unrest is happening there. Maybe that could be one reason, because Bid had a lot of law and order issue, but Pune would be a little far from there. But this clause is something, if EC wants to go to Supreme Court, it can always take this point. But yes, going by the law of the land, 6 months is maximum the vacancy can be there. So Justice Patel was right when he said that you should not be bothered whether it will be 1 year or less than 1 year when you're going to hold elections. But from the death of the candidate, 6 months were over in September, so you should have held the by-elections. But this clause B is something which EC can take up and go to Supreme Court if on file there is a noting, because I've worked for 20 years in the government. So if there is any noting which says that there were law and order issues, EC can give reasons, because excuses. I was hearing Mr. Satyapal Jain and he said EC would have come with reasons and excuses. So maybe this would be the excuse which EC could use to go to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I think Dayar was wanting to respond briefly, and I'm sure Mr. Jain also wants to come in. Dayar briefly, then Mr. Jain, and then, sorry, Ashutosh will come to you right after that. Dayar, go ahead.
No, I just want to set the record straight on that. As I said, that there are two exceptions. The first exception was the one with respect to the time period. The Election Commission does not take a defense on that. The second exception is the certificate that Abha mentions. And on that, there is the certificate. The certificate is something that we got under the RTI because when the 6-month period got over within which they were supposed to file an election, we filed a representation. They did not respond to our representation. We filed an RTI. They took longer than 30 days. After 30 days, they said, the certificate is under some other file. We will give it to you later. Finally, they gave the certificate to us. And it is on that certificate that we went to the Bombay High Court. And the certificate says the only two things. It says the person who will come in will not have enough time. And the second thing which it says is that we are busy conducting other polls. So all the directions that you're seeing of the Bombay High Court are with respect to the grounds that the Election Commission has taken in the certificate, saying you can't take these grounds with the certificate. And let me just clarify, add two more points where the Election Commission has set the law straight on certificates, which I think will protect the right of the electorate even in the future. Because what the Election Commission has been doing till date is whenever they issue a certificate like that, it becomes an internal document between the central government and the Election Commission of India. And the electorate is neither given a copy of the certificate, it is not notified, and there is not even a press release. This certificate was issued long back in August, and there was not a single whisper about the certificate. So what the Bombay High Court says is that you can never have a certificate like this, which is a private or an internal document, because you have to certify it to the electorate. They are the people whom you're certifying it to, that you're right, we are withholding your right. And just the second other point that it says with respect to certificate, a very curious thing that happens here. On 11th August, the Election Commission writes to the central government saying that these are the grounds we want to take and we want to issue a certificate. On 11th August itself, the central government comes back to them and says that, oh yes, your grounds are correct. They're supposed to hold a consultation. And this is where the Bombay High Court says that we can prima facie see there is no effective consultation. We have not seen governments act with such urgency before.
I want to actually bring in Mr. Jain on a larger macro point, and then I'm coming to Ashutosh. And my macro point is this, Mr. Jain. Might be those who argue that the court has exceeded its brief, that it is for the Election Commission to make an assessment of what are the circumstances that are conducive to the holding of the election. So I take Dayar's point, and I'm playing a devil's advocate here, that other bypolls were held. But as Abha said, the Election Commission can judge, as it has, for example, after the abrogation of 370, that there are peculiar circumstances that for which reason the elections must be postponed. Dayar Singla says, then explain those circumstances to the people. What are those circumstances? Nobody has told us. My question is a macro question. As you said, far-reaching consequences. Do you believe the court is within its jurisdiction to order the EC to hold these elections immediately, or do you believe it's exceeding its jurisdiction?
No, two things are very clear. The court always is within its jurisdiction, within its competence, and even especially under Article 324 of the Constitution of India, to take any decision of holding elections, giving a direction to any state center for holding the elections to Vidhan Sabha, Vidhan Parishad or Parliament. No dispute about that. Second, there is no dispute that Indian judiciary has the power to judicially review any order or any decision taken by the Election Commission of India. You might recall even in the Mahinder Singh Gill's case, 1978, when there was some dispute in the assembly, they torn the ballot papers, and ultimately Election Commission ordered the election afresh. Justice Krishna Iyer's presided bench, Constitution bench of the Supreme Court said, no, it is within the competence of the Election Commission. But two things. Decision should also be taken objectively, without any subjective satisfaction, except where it is required, objectively. Number two, court should also see laying down a principle of law, one thing. Very nice, very beautiful, no problem about it. And I must compliment my young lawyer for getting such a beautiful judgment from the court, which will be enabling all other states also to go and seek a writ of mandamus for holding election. But at the same time, I don't see any reason why from March until December, about 9 months have been taken by the court itself for giving a direction. I don't know when the petition was filed. And now only, even if we take it to June, the last, he has given some date of June. But the question is, the election of the parliament is in 6-7 phases. The process starts somewhere in February. We have already undergone half of the December. Even if the election commission takes a decision today to hold the by-election, it cannot be before the first week of February. And in February, we will be having the code of conduct and the election procedure. So therefore, agreeing with the principle of law with the election commission, but the timing, to my mind, I have myself contested 5 Lok Sabha elections, 2 I won, 3 I lost. I have been a lawyer on this side. So practically, I feel that for just 4, 5, 6 months, holding a by-election to parliament, and you imagine in Himachal, there are 17 assembly constituencies in one parliament. In Punjab, it is 13. In certain states, 4, 10, 12, huge amount, and though on record amount maybe a few lakhs, but everybody knows parliament, you can't contest less than 10, 12, 15 crores. From where the money will come, where the money will go. So you have to reconcile between the two, which I am saying. Election Commission must have the independence. They have the independence. Judiciary must have the power to review that. It's not immune from judicial review, but time factor is also very important.
I think you raised some very important points.
Just 1 minute more. Yeah. Just 1 minute. See, before ordering a by-election or elections, the Election Commission has to consult the state government also, the security agencies also. Why election to parliament is held in 4, 5 phases? Because security forces have to move from one state to another for conducting the free and fair election, peaceful election. Similarly, the local circumstances. For example, like a state Mizoram, there is some problem there. In Punjab, maybe certain areas, there may be some problem, local problem. Some agitation is going on, some rail roko agitation is going on, there is some strike, bands are going on. This could also be one of the factors which need to be taken into consideration before taking a decision.
Let me bring in, those are very important points, and I'm particularly struck by the cost of holding an election. At the same time, you raise, there says, it's for the people to decide, and you have to show a transparent consultative process if you're going to postpone or keep a seat open. Hang on, Ashutosh hasn't spoken, and I want Ashutosh and Abhi to come in, and then I'll come back to you. Ashutosh, go ahead.
Yes, I agree to what Mr. Jain just now said. It is absolutely correct that none of the constituencies should be vacant, and the people must be represented by an elected representative. But here, as we see that the death of the MP happened, and the seat was vacant from 29th of March 2023. Now the next election due is probably in May 2024. So now if we calculate even the timing, it is just one year, some 1 or 2 months. Okay. And the law, if we consider section 151A, proviso, A and B. So A clearly says that, as my other learned friends have also explained, that if the vacancy is left out or is remainder for 1 year or less, then there is no requirement of any election. So, and the second point also, B, which says that if the election commission has a consultation with the central government and they come to a conclusion that holding an election would be difficult, so in that case, it is not required to hold elections. And, accordingly, this was also declared by the Election Commission of India that it would be difficult. They had some consultation with the union government. This is what they have also stated. Do
you disagree with the court then?
See, practically, no. See, it is not about agreement or disagreement. See, the order which has been passed is just as per the law. But, the application of this order, practically how much it will be in the benefit of the people at large is the more important, and, that is the crux of the entire issue. Now, if, as Mr. Jain rightly said, that even if the election process now starts it would be held nothing before February or March. So is it viable, or is it in the right interest that people should go for election by March or February, and again back, in May again they should go for elections? Will that be in the interest of the people at large or not? That is the question here, because it is the cost to the people only. The people have to bear the cost. Ultimately, we are, on one hand, we are talking about the interest of the people to be represented properly, and on the other hand, we are adding cost onto them. And secondly, when the two elections happen, one maybe in February, March, the other one maybe in May, accordingly, after 2 months, it will be not only financial burden, but it will also have impact on the timing. There will be holidays required. There, people will be required to go to vote. So I think practically it will not be proper. Though I do agree that the elections should have taken place on time. There is no doubt on it. And the High Court is right in that way, that within 6 months, as the law says, the election should have taken place. I personally feel, I'm coming. I personally, I feel that the Election Commission might, go, in appeal and challenging this order before the Supreme Court. I don't know whether they are going to do it or not, but there are chances that they might go, and they may explain the practical problems or the issues they may face in contest, in holding the elections. And as we know that.
Can I jump in?
Yes,
Because
yes.
I want to pick up that last point. Abha's wanting to jump in. And I think there's a fair question there that that the court is correct to call out what appears to be arbitrary selectiveness in holding some bypolls and not holding the others. But the Satyapal Jain and Ashutosh are both raising the point, is this practical? Is this worth the money? Should you be holding elections if there's just a year or a few months left? Abha?
No, I see issue of practical should not come here. It is the duty of the court to uphold the law of the land. And when it says that the vacancy should be filled within 6 months, then the vacancy has to be filled, because then you will start messing up with the acts, you will start messing up with the constitution. But the bigger issue is, at least this case will make it for future reference. It will set a precedent that if a vacancy happens, it has to be filled in 6 months. You cannot have a discretion like that unless and until you have a file noting where you say there are rights there. Like I said, they could have used this Maratha reservation if there is a report from the DG, but that was not reflected to the Bombay High Court, and that is why there is no discussion on that. They've just stuck to the first point, saying that it is less than 1 year or whatever issues. So that law and order problem we don't know. But let me tell you, if it is 6 months, they should not tamper with the constitution at any cost. Any act should not be tampered with. It should have taken place in 6 months. But yes, the Bombay High Court has taken 9 months. It should have also been aware that it is a serious issue and have decided the matter within 6 months.
Daya, do you want to come in on this point that the court itself took a long time? Go ahead.
No, we are actually, let me also, clarify that. We are actually very grateful for the court to have done it very expeditiously, because let me just clarify the timeline here. 29th March is when the vacancy happens. For 6 months, we can't approach anyone, because 6 months is the time that the Election Commission has to conduct the election. Election Commission does not tell in August that we are not planning to hold this election. So actually, a week before 29th of September, when the period gets over, on 23rd, we file a representation to them, asking them for and if there was any reason why they're not holding this election, and informing them that the 6-month period is coming to an end. On 24th of September, we file an RTI saying that, because we understand, we hear that there is some certificate maybe, and we file an RTI to get that certificate. For another 1 month, no response on the representation, no response on the RTI. Finally, we receive a response on the RTI on the 30th, which is less 4 weeks and 1 additional week on the RTI. And on 30th of October, when we receive it, within 7 days, we approach the Bombay High Court, and we are there by 7th of November. And the Bombay High Court then passes this decision after taking the period of 1 month, within a period of 1 month. So the Bombay High Court has very quickly taken this case up. It is rather, and that is what the Bombay High Court is also trying to say, that, if at the end of this, if you say that, oh, of course, that on law we are correct, and they should have held an election and done that without giving a direction, it would just be a case of, you say the operation is successful, but the patient is dead. And that could not be the case.
So there
And in
is
terms of
the
just one
heart.
more point.
Can I just ask a question? Is the heart of your argument that in absence of any other explanation transparently put forth, you believe the Election Commission was selective / arbitrary in holding some bypolls, but not this particular one?
No, they were definitely arbitrary. And let me just give you another fact on that. And this is in the chart that the Bombay High Court saw, and it has mentioned it in their judgment. On 11th of January 2023, you have the disqualification of the Lok Sabha MP Shri Mohammad Faisal from Lakshadweep. This is an unclean vacancy because if he appeals it, he can come back in place. Within a week, on 18th of January, they announce the election. They release a press poll saying that we will hold an election for this, and they plan to hold an election. It is only after on 25th of January that he got his stay in the disqualification that they had to withdraw that election press release. So when the Election Commission clearly wants to hold an election, be it for whatever reason, they do it within a week. When someone passes away in March 2023, and let me just tell you what it means for Pune. The Pune MP Lads Fund, which is 10 crores, because he passed away before the beginning of this financial year, that entire fund is pending unopened for this year. That means 10 crore when a person comes into this seat directly goes to the people of Pune. So it has clear implication on the rights. And someone says it's only 1 year, 2 months, it's only 1 year, 3 months. A constituency being represented for an entire year is lakhs of people not having a representative in the parliament.
Let me get Ashutosh Nabha to come in, and I'll give Satyapal Jain the last word. We have to start closing. Ashutosh, I think those are excellent points by there. The fact there's an MP Lads fund that is underutilized, the fact that the Election Commission has been arbitrary.
See,
when the EC wants, it can do an election in 1 week. Even in in situations where there's been the shadow of terrorism, like Jammu and Kashmir. Go ahead.
See, if we talk about that sum of the amount, which could have been spent on the people, which is not possible now to be spent because the elections have not taken place. Now, my other issue, which I can put it here, that what happens if the cost of the election is more than what the amount is pending here to be spent on the people? Because see, it will cost more than the amount what is lying with the MP's fund, which could have been spent on the people. So I don't agree to it practically. Secondly, as Abhaji also rightly said, that there were other issues also. The law and order situation was there. We know that how Maratha reservation issue was also going on in the state. Maybe because we do not know what has been written and what consultation has been taken with the union government by the ECI, and accordingly they decided. Because see, practically the law says that 1 year should be the time. If it is more than 1 year, then only the election should take place. Now, where is the time left here? The March is already end, because 29th March it was vacated. So March is over. So it starts from April basically. And April to maybe March and April, May, we already have the elections to take place. So I do not think practically it will be very wise, even in the interest of the people, to hold elections. So I'm sure.
Yeah, you don't agree with it practically. They are one sentence then, Abha. One sentence, because I saw you disagreeing. They are? Can't hear.
No, I will just say that all the grounds are there on the certificate. There is no law and order issue. The EC has not claimed the certificate was there before the Bombay High Court. They have done a para by para analysis. So that is not wrong on that aspect. Two, it is the EC which has caused the delay. Where they have been conducting other elections again and again. Let me point it out. It is not, the delay is not part of Bombay High Court. It is not on the petitioners going late to them. It is purely on the Election Commission. They are not replying with respect to the certificate. They did not make the certificate public. And in terms of practicality, there is the budget session that is yet to come. The people of Pune deserve representation in the budget session, and their funds. I'm not purely on principle basis. Can the Election Commission be rewarded for not doing its constitutional duty and now be told that yes, you have created this entire circumstance where now election cannot be held, and therefore you can't hold the election? I'm sorry, that's all.
Okay, Abha, then Satyapal Jain closes for us. Yeah.
See, as a lawyer, I would say you have to uphold the law of the land. If the Constitution and the Representation of People Act says within 6 months it should have been held, it should have been held. But yes, and I also am happy that Justice Gautam Patel in 2 months has given a decision. I think days are changing in Bombay High Court. We are becoming speedy. But yes, now holding, because you should pass a stricture against EC. But now this election should be held with the remaining elections, because March and April is round the corner. But that should be very clear that from future onwards, within 6 months, any vacancy which falls vacant must be filled up. EC cannot go on anything unless and until there is a written specific order.
I think, Satyapal Jain, do you agree with Abha that the court could have passed a stricture against the AC, but practically to hold the election right now, and then I'll let the interject if he wants to. Now that doesn't work. Now the point is, I think the point has been made, the court cannot involve itself in practicality. It has to go by the rule book.
See, two, three things are very clear. There is no difference of opinion on the larger principles. Number one, wherever there is a vacancy to Vidhan Sabha, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, Vidhan Parishad, it should be filled within 6 months as laid down by the law. There is no doubt about it. It is also a fact, agreeable principle, that if the remaining term is less than 1 year, then there is we may not go for by-election, because it will not be in the interest of the constituency, the person elected, huge amount which has to be sent there. Third, I appreciate, as my learned friend young boy was saying, that the Bombay High Court took just 2 months to pronounce the judgment. It's a very good thing. We appreciate that. And I wish that is the attitude of the courts in almost all the cases. Many problems will be solved if you take a decision as early as possible. So far as the MP fund is concerned, I just want to inform him, as per my information, subject to correction, if some MP dies or resigns and there is some unspent amount in his fund, it doesn't lapse. It gets transferred to the man who is elected thereafter. So the man who will be elected even in March or April will be getting the entire amount which will be spent in the same constituency. That is my assessment. At least when I was MP, that was the position there. So amount, so far as the money is concerned, its spending may be delayed, but it will not lapse. But still I feel three principles: vacancy filled in time, no unnecessary delay only if there are hard compelling circumstances, and third, once again there is a time when all parties put together, state governments, should lay down all acceptable criteria so that nobody is accused of any arbitrariness, selectiveness and all that.
Well, I think one thing is clear, we do have to close, but whatever is eventually decided, and I think someone made the point, Ashutosh did, that the EC may appeal in the Supreme Court. One does have the sense that this case will go all the way to the Supreme Court, because it is not just about Pune. It will henceforth set a precedent for all bypolls, for all states. So it will be very interesting to see what happens. It's a very critical case in that sense, Dayar. So your battle may have only just begun and not ended. Thank you very much. The debate continues. Satyapal Jain, to Ashutosh Srivastav, to Abha Singh and to Dayal Singla, thank you. And to our audience, thank you for watching. See you tomorrow. Mojo Story has always made a commitment to its viewers to go to where the story is. And as you can see here, we are at the epicenter of the Israel war on Gaza. We are right at the front line, about 1 mile from the Gaza Strip, as the Israeli military gets ready with its tanks and its gunners to begin its final frontal assault that will take troops into Gaza. As we said, we are not like other organizations. We believe in giving you all sides of the story objectively and as much as possible from the ground. And that's exactly what we're doing here, covering the biggest global story today from the epicenter of the war zone. So please, we need your support. Support us, become a Mojo member, subscribe to us, spread the word, and thank you for your support.